the
Yep.
registrants here. If you can go to the next slide. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to check out the Mastercam 2026 rollout and what we have to offer. I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping first. Everybody's muted by default. You should have a little widget. Usually it's on the right-hand side of your screen. There is a raised hand button. If I could get a few folks to just sort of click that raise hand, that way we'll know that everyone can see everything okay and hear everything okay. Excellent. I'm seeing a whole bunch of hands coming up here now. Perfect. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. If you toggle that, then the hand goes off, or I can do it manually. As we go through the presentation, Kevin's going to be doing the presentation here for us, but you can chat in the question area. You can type in questions, and if we can, we'll answer them as we go through. But typically, it's best for us to sort of continue on with the presentation, and then we will circle back and answer all the questions. We'll have a Q&A period at the end. If you can get to the next slide. Okay, so Kevin McLean mentioned he's my colleague over in Quebec, and he's an AE, and he'll be doing the bulk of the presentation. I myself am Lee. Thanks again for joining us. Touching on the agenda, Kevin's going to go through systems, design, mill, and lathe, and then of course some of the complementary items that underneath all of those. As I mentioned, we will do a Q&A at the end, so please stick around. And we can either answer the questions, or if we need to, we can unmute people and they can answer their question that way if they're having any difficulty typing into the question widget. And lastly, the meeting will be recorded. Everybody who registered will receive the recording link once we've compiled everything, and we'll send that out. Typically, probably either come out later today or sometime tomorrow. Okay, that's it. I'll pass it over to you, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. So let me just pop it here. There you go. So let's just dive into the subject. So we're going to start with system enhancements. So these enhancements, obviously, they are for every Mastercam user. So we're going to start off with what's new with the level manager. So let me just open up an example file. Let's call it level. Here you go. It's going to take a couple of seconds to load. So with Mastercam 2026, they revamped or redesigned the level manager. As you can see, the looks is a bit different than what you're used to. All in all, it's to provide users with a greater experience. There's also obviously a couple of new features, but let's just go quickly through the core features that we're all used to. So first of all, the icons, they're a bit different. We need to be conscious about that little green check mark. That's my active level. All the other levels have just the basic level icon, but you will notice there's also group, and we'll come back to those in a second. To toggle visibility on and off with the level, you will use the little eye icon here, so I can hide or show my my stuff. And the little three dots here, it's essentially the same as a right click, so you could just right click to access all the same options we're used to, like select, cut, delete, and everything. But there's also obviously the group feature that is available. Now, let's see how we can create a level, because you'll notice we've lost the option at the bottom to just type in a number and everything. So we need to use the new level here. Level number will be set up automatically. You just type in your name right there. Sorry, the name, the title, the level name, let's say. It becomes your active levels. You can rename using different ways. You can right click to renumber or rename, or you could also use a slow click. So if I just select it and then click it afterwards, then I can just type in the rename. Same thing usually for the level number as well, if you don't like the right click. Quick tip too, you can use the F2 with this. So if I select any level, I just hit F2, and then I'm able to change the name of that. There's also a search feature that is now available, so I can go type in here. I'm looking for, let's say, containment. So I start typing in a word, and it will filter out any level name that has that name here. So if you're working with a large number of levels, this is definitely something that is useful. And there's also a filter here. You can remove different levels. So let's say I don't want to see any level from that group. If I uncheck this and I click OK, I don't see that group anymore in the list. I can remove, let's say, all the groups, and then I'm only seeing whatever is not in a group. So you can play with that as well. So it's a different filtering option. And there is also some sorting options. You can sort your level by number, name, ascending, descending, and everything. You will notice that even though the level number is active as the sorting method ascending, you can see that number 2 and number 12 are not really sorted. Even number 6 is not sorted. To activate the sorting, you really need to click on the icon, and now it's active, and it will stay active automatically. So if I create a new level, you see it comes up where it's supposed to be. And if I change the number here and I put, I don't know, 49, it's automatically going to get sorted into the proper position. And also you will notice that the levels within the groups are not out of the groups whenever you activate your sorting by level number, but within a group, they're going to be sorted by number. And also the groups are going to be automatically sorted with alphabetical order whenever the level number is used. So groups, how do they work? Let's say I want to create a group for containments here. I basically just select multiple levels. I can use the Control or the Shift key, right click, groups, and it will put them into a group. And then I can obviously rename my group, call this my containment group. And then the nice thing about groups is you can activate or deactivate the visibility of the entire group. It basically replaces the level sets for whoever was using those previously. So it's really a new way of basically sorting your level, organizing your level, and everything. You can also drag and drop the levels. Okay, now obviously I have my sorting active. So if I take a specific level and drag it somewhere else, it's automatically going to sort or eliminate or remove the sorting options here. So it's just a matter of basically playing with that, trying the new features. You can drag stuff into groups as well. So there's definitely some stuff you can do with that. I encourage you to try it out. One thing to note is that, give me a second. One thing to note is that by default, there's a setting active where whenever you click on a level, it's going to highlight automatically. I decided to turn it off. You could do too. You can keep it on. It's really a preference. It's within your configuration, or you can access those through the selection setting here. So if you go in there, there's going to be auto highlight level entities. So if you have this active, let me just use it active right now. So you see, as I toggle through the level, you see how the clamps are being highlighted, and then let me just grab something that is actually visible. There you go. So as you have something that is visible, it's going to be highlighted on the screen. So essentially, if you don't want this feature, you can just remove it fairly easily. You just uncheck this, and then it's not going to highlight anymore with that. Yeah, I think that's basically it for the levels. We'll just move on through quickly with the planes. One thing I didn't mention is, like, you can expand an actual level to see the different types of entities. is within that level. Like that level contains 10, 20 lines and 4 surfaces and so on. So you can actually get more detail about what's in the actual individual level. So we'll just move on real quick to the planes, which is essentially, again, the same type of revamp that they did. So let's just go through the planes here. Again, just a quick note, by default, this is the look you're going to be working with. You can activate the property panel at the bottom just by clicking that little arrow. And as you can see, it remembered my last use. This is essentially the same options that we had previously. A new thing about this box here, you can actually go in there and activate or deactivate certain options. So let's say for whatever reason you don't like to work with the origin option. If I remove this, you see how it's gone from that panel here. So you can actually personalize this to your need. By default, I think it comes up with like coordinates, color, and also like comment. So you can actually make it a lot smaller by removing anything that is not used. So what's new about the level? Again, grouping. This is the main thing that is new. It lets you organize your groups, and it works pretty much the same way as it did with the level. So you can again, you can select multiple levels here. Planes. You just right click, group them. You can group them into a specific group. You can rename that group to, call it fins, because that's all my fins. So again, it's just an organization tool to keep your things as organized as possible. You have the same options about sorting, about filtering, about searching. I want to search for a level about ribs. Here are all my levels. Okay, so it's super user friendly to find your stuff around. You can drag and drop. Again, I can select this and drop it to put it out of a different level. Now, talking about usability of things we're actually used to, the first thing is the icon here. That icons is about the work offset. This means it's an automatic work offset. This means I'm using work offset 0. So if I just expand this here, you see I'm at manual 0. Here I'm set to automatic. So this is your work offset. And then to activate a certain WCS C plane, T plane, it works basically the same way it did before. You can also lock your planes. You can make it always visible. By visible meaning like keeping the axis on the screen. You can also activate your section view. Anybody familiar with section view, it works the same way. You can activate your section view out of this, and this is just basically the right click again. One thing that is actually also new that is really, really nice is the ability to set a default work offset. So the default work offset means anytime you create a new file, all your default planes like top, front, back will use that work offset. And anytime you create a new plane, it will also use that work offset. You can change it different places. I'm just going to show you within the configuration because it's just easier for my brain to remember where it is. In your configuration here, you have your planes, you have manual. Okay, that's the default automatic. I changed it to manual 1 in the previous French webinar this morning, so that's why it's set at that. But let me just show you. If I create a new file, you will notice that all the planes are automatically set to work offset number 1 without me doing anything specific. And if I create a new plane, it will also automatically be set to work offset number 1. So anybody who's familiar with playing with work offset, this is a little nice addition. Also, in a new file, you will notice that all the default planes are automatically grouped together as a system plane. So you can easily minimize that to remove them from your view so that you're not seeing anything not useful for your work. So I talked about this. Yeah, talked about that. Plane overlay. So that little thing here. This is a new feature of 2026. It basically replaces or do the same thing as these menus at the bottom here. These were used to set your C-plane, T-plane, and WCS. I can pretty much do the same thing using this now. This is a lot better because it's integrated within the group system. So if I open, let's say, my WCS here, I can actually minimize and expand the groups that I see here, something that I'm not able to do from this menu here. So it's actually a lot better to use this, and also you have access to creating all your planes from this menu here and change if you're set to 2D, 3D, and you have access to your settings here. So if I click on this settings, it basically mimics the options for this here. So you can actually create plane, change your plane without ever being into the plane manager at that time. So a lot of new features on that side. So let me just get back. Here you go. Okay, so I don't see any questions. So let's just move on to verify selection. Now, verify selection is something that was available before. Pretty sure nobody ever used it. Anybody who remembers verify selection knows it was not really great using it. So they've actually remade the entire thing. So this is something that's going to be active by default for all people. It is possible to turn it off if you don't want it, but it's actually a nice little feature. So the way it works is whenever I get to select something, if I leave my mouse in the same spot for more than 1 second, you will notice that the icon near my cursor changes. And here I can see there's 1/9 entity possible. So if I just click, it's going to do the regular click, so that's nothing new. But if I leave it there and wait for that 1/9 to appear, I can just right click and I can essentially select anything that was like over my cursor or near my cursor, even though it's hidden behind different stuff. So I can actually move between the different options for me, and I can say, oh, that's what I want to select. I select this, and even though I didn't actually select that, it was selected, and then I can do my stuff on it. So this is active by default. You don't need to turn on anything, but you can turn it off, and you can also modify the way you interact with it, again, through the selection settings here. You can just turn off the entire feature if you don't want it. You can change the delay. Let's say I want to use no delay, and you can change from hide to dim. So this is basically how the preview toggle works between previewing the different entities. So let's just use hide and no delay just to show you how it actually works. So you can see now it's like on all the time. I don't need to actually wait. Anytime I click to select something, I can right click. And then as I toggle through this, it will hide instead of dim all the other entities. One thing I didn't mention, you can actually use your mouse wheel to scroll over this, or even your keyboard arrows. And then you select whatever you want, and that thing is now selected. So this is a nice little feature. I encourage you to try it. It's like, again, another way, another tool available to you to make your selection more precise without much extra work of closing levels and all that stuff. I'm going to show an example later on how you can actually really use that feature really nicely in a day-to-day work. So we're going to move on to the next block, which is the design, starting with analyze deviation. So analyze deviation feature is not new. Analyze deviation was introduced last year with Mastercam 2025. The new feature about analyze deviation is the fact that it now works with meshes as well. Here I have a mesh. Okay, so it's not a surface, it's probably a scan of something. I think it was a Violon chin rest. Yeah, it's a chin rest. So essentially, you can bring in your mesh, and then you can compare your modeling to that mesh using that analyze deviation. Here I'm going to use surface to surface, and mesh could be treated as a surface here. And then as you can see, we can actually see what are the high spot and the low spot when we compare both surfaces together. You have some options here. Again, here nothing is new. This is the exact same feature. The new feature about this is just the fact that we can compare to meshes instead of only being limited to surface and solid. So really helpful for anybody working with imported cloud meshes or scans or stuff like that, and you have to recreate stuff. This is definitely something that you could use. We're going to move on to solid holes. Now, anybody creating holes with Mastercam as solid holes, you can definitely use like draw a circle and make an extrusion. But Mastercam has introduced a couple of version back, like maybe, I don't know, 5-6 version back, the old feature, which lets you create hole counterbores, countersinks, and all that stuff. Now, they redid the design of the function. It works, again, the same way. It's just going to use a different interface. So if I select my holes, the first page here, as you notice, like you have different menus, so that's new. You can essentially select the position of your different holes that you want to do. So one new feature with this function is you can see on screen the different dimensions that you're actually doing extruding or drilling or whatever in here, and then you can basically set your different counterbore, countersink. Again, nothing is new about whatever I'm showing. It's just like the interface is different, and the fact that you can see the different values, dimensions here. One new feature that you have is the fact that you can now select threaded holes as a specific type. And what it will do is it will automatically assign a color to your feature. Okay, this is due to the fact that in the advanced tab, I can actually see threaded or not. So if I can change the color if I don't want to, but by being active on threaded, it will put that color onto the feature, so then I can more easily select those features later on down the road. There's also a way, they've changed a bit how it works. It's not new, but like you can create your own library of features. So let's say here I can create a test template, and then whatever feature I define here, I can add it to my library. I want to add it to either library, doesn't really matter. You press OK. And now I'm able to select that feature if it's a feature that I design often. Let's say I do my own fixtures and I always need to design a quarter-inch 20 UNC thread. Well, I can save that in, and then whenever I try to do that, I just open up the proper library, select the proper feature or presets, and then it will fill out all the information for me about diameter, depth, and everything. So definitely, if you are designing holes in solids, think about using the solid hole features, and with the new functions, it just makes it even better than it already was. Solid selection. I can stay in the same here. So again, talking about solid design, if you remember properly in Mastercam 2025 and previous version, when you select the constant fillet option or the one distance chamfer option, it would pop a box or a window where you had to select if it was an edge, a face, or a solid that you were trying to select. This box has been removed and replaced by just using those icons here. You are probably all familiar with these icons because we're using it in other functions. So it just basically consolidate the use of those different icons. But one thing to notice is if you have all three active, the icon representing the type of features you're selecting is different in 2026. So it's a minor detail. But if I come over that face right now, you can see it's actually like a cube, and then there's a black face. So that means I'm selecting a face. If I move a bit, you see it's going to move to a white cube. So that means the entire solid is going to be selected. And if I move onto an edge, it's going to be a cube, but there's going to be like one edge that is going to be bold for my selection. And as you can see, I'm trying to fillet stuff, but I can actually use the verify selection to select stuff that's not even visible. I'm able to select the bottom edge of that face by just using the verify selection here. Okay, so I can just wait, right click, and then select that line if I want. Okay, so you don't have to move your model around. And this is a reason why some people might prefer removing the delay, because you don't have to wait. I could just, anytime there's something I need to select that's hidden, I don't have to wait. I could just right click and select it like that through the solid, through the model, without having to remove the visibility or the shading or all that stuff. So this is, again, an example of how we could use the new verify selection. But these works pretty much the same way as it did before. It's just not redundant, right? We're just having one place where we can activate. I don't want to select any solid and just select faces, so I know I'm just selecting faces without too much having to wait or select precisely the proper thing. And then let's go to the other options here. Give me a second. There you go. So the next function is the loft feature. Let me just read my note. I just feel like I forgot something real quick. That's all right. Okay. Sorry. I was just I was thinking about something that I missed, but I feel like I did everything. Loft, surface loft. So surface loft, whoever is working with 3D models, sometimes during the course of our programming, we need to recreate a surface. Surface loft is one of those features that we use a lot. Now, what is new with 2026 is we don't have to worry too much about direction of the chain and even the start point of the different chains. You know, previously, if you were trying to morph a circle to a square, you have to break up your circle where there's squares, and all that stuff is now automatically working if you use the new features. And as you can see, I'm going to select this one counterclockwise, this one clockwise, this one counterclockwise, like that. And the twist about the surfaces is like the flip is gone because align matching direction here. So if I this was previously what we were getting. If I align matching direction, this is what we get. So the chain direction doesn't matter. But now the start point is actually still a problem because you can see that it creates a twist in the surface. Now you have now the option of using dynamic sync. And then if I use minimum distance, you can see that it removes the twist from those from that surface. Sorry. So what happens is you don't have to create endpoints, or you can remove those steps to your creation and get the surface you wanted initially. There's also a new option, match surface tangency at first and last change. And you saw it before because it was on, because I did my webinar this morning. But yeah, you can see here that it automatically tries to create a tangency between the loft surface and whatever surrounding surfaces are visible at the time you create your loft surface. You don't need to select the top and bottom surface. They're going to be selected automatically, but they just need to be there to basically give you this loft surface with tangency. So that's also the new features for design. So we're good with that. Let's just move on to the new stuff about Mastercam mill and router, obviously. So let's start off with taper helixes. So with any dynamic 2D toolpath or Optirough toolpath, there is now an option to use a taper helical entry. Now, as an example here, you can see that this is the old regular helixes we always add. And then if I go to my entry motion, there's now an option here, taper helix. As you can see, there's no extra option. You just activate taper helix. And what it will do is it will basically modify your entry so that your helix creates a cone shape. And this is just for preventing that the first few motion, you you're in a hole that is too small, the coolant can get in and the chips can get out. So by doing an helical motion like this, the first few cuts are going to create really smaller and chips that are easier to evacuate, because also the hole at the top is going to be bigger. Now you might be wondering, how can I control the size, the taper angle, and all that stuff? This is automatically done, so you don't have to worry about that. It is going to be automatically done. Let me just do this. So the way it works is it is essentially going to use your tool diameter as a reference. The initial diameter is going to be 95% of your tool, and the final diameter is going to be 25% of your tool. So depending on the tool diameter and the depth of your helix, this is going to make the taper angle different. We don't have control over that. This is done automatically. You just activate that feature and it will give you a great result. It's usually a good thing to activate those, because it's a better way of plunging into the part rather than just doing the regular helix. So available for dynamic and OptiRough toolpaths. Let's move on to ohm reference points. Now, anybody who's ever worked with ohm reference point know they're not the easiest thing we can do. Essentially, they've introduced a new way of working with ohm reference point in your toolpath for approach and retract. So let's just make a quick contour here. So let's say I'm doing the contour of this this shape right here. So I'm doing the contour. I'm gonna do my my tool selection, and then I'm gonna create the different values for depth and all that stuff. That's all right. When I get to the ohm reference point page, you're gonna notice it's different. This is mainly just interface change. But if I activate an approach, you'll notice that I now have 4 different types instead of like the original 2. The original 2 were only absolute incremental, and now I have both absolute and both incremental for world and tool plane. And usually you can use the tool plane. Now, if you have an older file with reference point, it will automatically use the world, which is the old way of working with this feature. But now it just means that, let's say I put some values there just so we use it as a reference. Let's just use this, whatever, absolute world. What it will do is it will actually go to that value, but use the z-axis of my world top plane, and not use the z-axis of my tool plane that is active. Okay, so that's the big difference here. If I use absolute tool plane, it will basically reference the z-axis as the z-axis of my tool plane and not the z-axis of my Mastercam session. Now, this is especially helpful if you copy a toolpath, and let's say I want to do the same thing from the back plane. I can just go back into my operation and change my my plane to be, instead of using front, let's say I use back, and you're gonna notice that it actually used the z-axis of the back plane now instead of the front plane. Now, I could have set it to world if I wanted both toolpaths to come from the exact same point, but now I want the point to be relative to my tool plane. So this is the new way of working with that, which is actually really helpful. So just make sure whenever you're using that feature that you use tool plane or world, depending on which one you're using. And a quick reminder, world is the old way of working with it. So if you're used to how it worked and you don't want to change anything, just use the world one, and it's going to be the same thing as it was before. Spindle speed in dynamic. So let's open this file here. So one new feature that's available for dynamic mill is for within the cut parameters here, this option here, that's new for 2026. If you don't know what it is, the first pass offset and feed rate percentage, it was just like the first pass you're doing. Let's say you're cutting an outside shape and you're not sure about the size of the actual part, then you can expand it, make it run a bit slower to make sure, you know, if there's a big burr or anything, you can take it slow, but you can also now change the spindle speed. And this is also available for blend mill. In your blend mill toolpath, you will have the first pass feed rate percentage. That was already there. First pass spindle speed is the new option. So you can control those feed rates and spindle speed for the first pass on both dynamic mill and blend mill. Color for 2D toolpaths. So again, it's not a new feature. It's a feature, an existing feature applied to existing toolpath. So anybody familiar with Mastercam 2025, they introduced into the toolpath dynamic mill the option to actually see your chain that is selected within the toolpath itself. So while you're still in the toolpath, you can actually see that, you know, my machining region is a green. If I had some air region selected, I could actually see, you know, both colors here without having to leave the toolpath to identify which areas I've been working with. So now this is not new. This was there in 2025, but now the options are available in all the other 2D toolpaths. So talking about contour, pocket, face mill, and even model chamfer. So if I open up a contour here and I do my chain selection, you will notice that I can now see the chain that is available when I'm in that page. And this is due to the options that I have. Like right now, it's visible all the time, but I can actually see only display element on current page. So it will show me the planes because I'm in the linking parameters. And then here, it doesn't show me anything because there's nothing on screen for me to see. But if I get back to my toolpath, I can actually visually see my chain without having to activate anything or go in there, see it, and everything. And obviously, the avoidance and work holding geometry here are grayed out because this is part of the contour toolpath. You don't have access to this. But if you go into a model chamfer, I think I already add one. Yeah, it's right there. Okay. So if you go into a model chamfer, and let me just display only the elements on the current page. Now, when I add some avoidances region, let's say I want to make sure this is not touched, I'm going to see the red color. And same thing for work holding geometry. I can add my work holding that is defined in my stock setup, and this will all come blue without me having to do anything specific. So it helps you identify if you've made the proper selection whenever you're working with those toolpaths. Let's just stay in that part right here. As you can see in the milling and router interface, when you expand the property groups, you will have now different access points, and that these access point matches the access point that you have. So you can get into your work holding or master model directly. Previously, we had to go in any others and then switch, but here I can just go master model and get in there and be in the master model page. So any pages here will have its appropriate entry point here. So if I want to change my work holding, I can get in there and modify the work holding directly. So again, nice little thing here to save clicks wherever we can. Talking about work holding, let me just bring a specific file for this. I think it's called work holding. Yeah, there you go. So let's just wait till it loads. There you go. So if I go into my work holding, Oh, I thought that file had work holding. Anyways, let's activate my my fixtures. Now they've changed a bit. It works pretty much like the levels and the plane manager. You can drag and drop, create the groups and everything just like it worked. New thing is if you add from a specific level, let's say I add my, I don't think I'm in the proper file, but anyways, let's say I add from these two levels here. They will come up with the proper level names and also the level defined here. But if you select from the screen, then it will use the name of your solid feature. Okay, so this is something to think about. And if you select both, you can then group those. You forgot, you can add one in the group, or you can take it out of the group. Okay, so you can drag and drop, and you can select whichever you want to make active for that simulation that you're trying to do. So you can play with those as well, working with the groups the same way it did for the levels and the plane manager. So let's go for critical depth. Now, critical depth is not a new feature in 3D toolpaths, but it's now available with your OptiRough operations. So as an example, I have this this file right here. As you can see, like the step down that I selected or I use are not appropriate for this part. I'd like maybe to make a step down at precise depth so that it matches my part. So you have the option to, in your cut parameters, activate critical depths. And there's two ways to do this. There's the automatic way. So if you just say include flats, it will just basically arrange your depth cuts to make sure that it makes or creates a step down exactly where there's going to be some flats. Now, it will obviously analyze all the flats. So on some parts, this might not be the best, but on a part like this where there's mainly two step down that are critical, it will automatically do this for me. It will scan the parts and get those depth cuts. Let's just wait for the regen. Shouldn't be that long. I did it this morning, so. While we're waiting, I'm just gonna try and show you the other options for this. So on a part like this, where I'm working both sides here, so I have the top toolpath here, and then I'm working from the other side to try and do the other side. You can see that because my depth cuts start from the top here and have a big steps, I'm never actually going behind the part here to remove any extra material. It needs to do a ramping here because it cannot just fit in. So this is definitely something you could easily modify by using the manual selection. So in this example here, in my cut parameters, I use include manuals. And if I select this, you can see that this point was selected. Now this is all right, but the problem is because there's a collision tolerance on this, it's part of my work holding, and then I have 1 mil of tolerance. It cannot actually create the pass that I need to work with. So what I can do is, instead of using that point, I can just basically shift click here and make sure that, you know, I'm a bit above the 1 mil tolerance here. And it will actually force the toolpath to make a depth cut at that specific height. Now, while it's doing that, let's just look at the other one. Here you go. It's done calculating. You can see that it modified my step down to match the different flats that I had in my part. And it created an extra step here, obviously, because that's more than my maximum depth cut that I allowed. Now, if I go back here, you can see that by just creating an extra depth cut, I went from this here, where I had like 3 step downs, but they were not aligned properly, to this here where I still have my 3 step downs here, but like I have one where it's actually critical for me to machine this. So this is definitely something that you could use in your day-to-day work to have a lot more control over what critical steps your toolpath is actually machining at. Definitely something to think about using whenever you're working with dynamic toolpath. Let me just see. So we've done this. Just looking at my note here. Okay, Deburr. Lee, I'm not sure. Did you want to talk about Deburr, or you wanted to talk at the end of the webinar?
Yeah, actually, what I was going to say is for those that are interested in the Deburr add-on, we're going to chat a little bit about it at the end of the webinar, but we have a bit of an announcement there. So those that are interested in the Deburr, please do stick around for that after the Q&A.
Perfect.
Thanks, Kevin.
So what's new about Deburr? So we know the previous version of Mastercam introduced Deburr as a 3-axis module add-on available, and now anybody with multi-axis already have the Deburr 5-axis options. That new feature that I'm going to show you applies to both Deburr options. So the first feature is anybody who used Deburr with a chamfer mill in previous version, whenever you were doing like a basic chamfer outside a part, if you had like a straight edge here, it would create those retracts, right? It would retract and then come back in. Now this has been fixed, or in Mastercam 26. I machined that part in 2025. I just opened the file and hit regen, and you're going to notice that it will now just basically do the same as a regular milling toolpath. Okay, so that's great news for everybody using this. Now, another new feature about this toolpath, this specific toolpath, is in a part like this, I have a hole that connects to like from top and left ear. And obviously, this is always going to create a big burr inside. So I need to go in there and deburr. I'm using a lollipop to deburr this. Now, depending sometimes on your tool dimensions and also your hole size, it was actually really hard to get the toolpath to deburr those. And the reason is because of your geometry relation, it was actually not capable of continuing the motion without either getting within the tolerance of collision here and so on. So what's new about this is in your Deburr toolpath, there's an option to allow what they call asymmetric edge shape. Now, if I activate this, what we can actually see here is that it will try to deburr, even though it does not create a perfect deburr at 45 degrees between the two faces. So you will have a certain leeway as to, well, I know it's not gonna be 45, but at least it's gonna do something. And we can actually clearly see that by activating here the asymmetric options, it actually generates the toolpath for the entire deburr here. And I can even show you better here to essentially get to that point here where, as you can see, it will not be a 45 degree at that point, but at least it's not trying to get 45 degrees and get within collision at the top here. So that's the whole point of using this option. You get more freedom over doing shapes that are maybe a bit difficult to access. So again, anybody, we have an announcement with Deburr at the end of the webinar. Anybody who's interested in that toolpath, there's definitely some good news for you. Let's talk about drilling with void. Now, they changed drilling selection in Mastercam 2025, and one thing or one area that was always a bit troublesome was the voids when you had coaxial holes like this. So this has been fixed with a new option. If you go into your drilling, before you do your selection, in your advanced tab, you have the option to include voids or not. So if I have the option off and I select this hole, it's going to select this hole, right? Nothing fancy here. if I have the option on and I select this hole, now it will automatically detect that hole. And once you're going to be inside your toolpath in the hole segment page, you're going to be able to select that hole as a part of your entire feature. Okay, so that means if I drill this, you see how it automatically detects the entire thing from top to bottom without me doing anything, because I selected the entire hole as a feature. Now, obviously, you're not going to be peg drilling all that, but let's say it was not machined yet and it was the first feature you would do, then you can combine those two together by using the void in the drilling selection, include voids or not. So that's all up to you. Before we move on to multi-axis enhancements, let's just talk about tool manager improvement. So Mastercam 2026 introduces a new way to work with milling tools. So tool creation is a bit different. It's mostly the same terms, mostly the same places, the same options you have. They redid the entire interface and gave you a couple of more options. So this is always nice. So if I go into my tool manager and I create a tool, you will notice that I'm not presented with the usual window that will pop up. Instead, it's a menu on the left side. And again, you can set the same stuff like your name, description. You have your type, tool type selection here, tool number, code, description, like advanced settings and everything. And then if you go into the next tab, you have again the same options. The wording might be a bit different, but mostly it's the same stuff, where you can set your flute length, your shoulder length, and all that stuff. And you have after that your parameters for feed rate, plunge speed. One little thing also that's new, like for the step over, it's now not automatically a percentage. It could be a percentage, but you could also set a value, which is sometimes it was a bit tricky to get down to a specific percentage. Now, what is new about this, except the fact that it's now a separate menu, is the way you're going to work with custom models. So for those who are not aware, there's multiple ways you could create a custom tools. One of the ways is you could have a tool profile on a specific level. So here, as you can see, I have a profile of a tool that I designed or I imported from a DXF, whatever. So what I can do is I can go into my tool manager and I can create a new tool. I can say it's going to be a lollipop, and then when I get to the parameter or geometry page, I can import my geometry from a level. So again, that feature is not new. The new thing about that is the term anti-collision model and parametric model. So the anti-collision model is essentially the model is going to use for simulation and collision detection, and parametric model is the model Mastercam is going to use for toolpath generation. And when I mean toolpath generation, is like the contact point of your toolpath on the surface and so on. Again, this was something that was already there, but it was called Mastercam tool, an imported tool or something like that. So they've just made the word maybe a bit clearer. So let's just say I import from my level 2, which is the tool profile. So as you can see now, I have my, in blue or teal, I have my anti-collision model, and in yellow I have my parametric model. I can use both shaded, unshaded, so I can play with that. Okay, so I can play with the opacity as well. Okay, so that makes things a bit easier. And also you can see like it's in my Mastercam interface, so I can zoom in, zoom out. I can do all that stuff, and then I can set my parameters. The nice thing you're gonna notice is that on the left here are the option to grab on screen the different dimensions. So here, if I look at my shoulder diameter, I notice that it doesn't match, or it didn't recognize automatically. Well, instead of referring to my DXF or my drawing or my PDF of my manufacturer's website, I can just go in here and say that's my shoulder diameter, and it automatically generates that. That's my shank diameter is already good, so that's all right. My shoulder length is not good. I can say it goes from ear to ear, and then you can modify your values from the on-screen directly. Same thing for the cutting length. I could say it goes from the tip to that point here without me having to refer to any models. So that's the new thing about tool creation in Mastercam milling. Also regarding tool, any tool path you're gonna do in Mastercam 2026, they changed the buttons here. I think previously it was like only text. It was select tool libraries or something like that. Now you have your select tool library, create tool, and create assembly. So you don't have to right click create tool to actually create a new tool, and you have your filter settings and activate filter on and off here. So again, they just redid the buttons a bit, but this is your usual select tool library option that will bring out your tool library, and then you have the same options for selection as you're used to in that portion of the software. Okay, we're almost done with milling. There's 3 little things with multi-axis toolpath. So first of all, there's the rotary advance. So anybody with a multi-axis license who've ever used that toolpath, it's a great toolpath. One new thing that they've introduced is the ability to create extra lead in, lead out when you're coming from the outside of your part. Now, if I go into my rotary advance here, you can see I have my lead in, lead out, and these are coming from these 2 options here: contour leads, last close contour, and open contours. Now, my last close contour means the last contour on the outside of a pocket, and the open contour are these ones here. So I can control and add some lead in, lead outs if I want to this toolpath. As for the question in the chat, maybe it would be best if we just either show it at the end or do it through tech support for the tool creation question. Safety zone. So for safety zone, they've introduced a new option in the safety zone. So let's see here. I have some drilling, and as you can see, the transition between the 3rd and 4th hole, it's around a safety zone that was defined in my operation. So if I go into that operation and I'll look at the safety zone option here, you can see I played. So again, this is nothing new. We have a safety zone defined, and you can see that the motion respect my safety zones for the transition between the different holes. Now, we have here motion priority. Before, it was always what we call minimized length. So it gave you the smallest length motion. Now they've introduced an option for you to use the smallest angle change. So it will, in fact, give you a completely, it will give us a different result to minimize any rotation or vector changes throughout that entire motion. So if we compare both options here, we can see that it gives us an entirely different motion around my part. So again, it's really part and safety zone dependent. So depending on your part and your safety zone, well, maybe they're going to be exactly the same. Maybe they're going to be completely different. But these are the new options. So you have minimized length, so smallest length of the toolpath, smallest angle change, and then balance, which is basically somewhere in between both, right? The midpoint or the average of both options. So that's the new stuff for milling. Let me just double check. I think I pretty much did everything. Yeah, okay. Now let's talk about simulation, verify, and all that's all that stuff. So let's say here I want to simulate this this part here. Wait, let me just grab the part that it's actually prepared for that. So they've added a couple of features in Verify. So let's say I load this. So the first feature is essentially what they call the operation information. So the operation information is on the left side here. This is a completely new section that wasn't there before. You had move info and toolpath info, but this is really related to that specific operation. So what's the feed time for that operation? It's operation one, what type of operation you're doing and all that stuff. And this option will change if I go to the second operation. You can see that it changes. If I go to the third operation, it changes again to show me exactly the information for that specific operation. So that is new. And also something that is not advertised, but you can actually now click on the slow and fast to reduce your slider 10%. So it's basically separated in 10 sections, so 10% more each time. So it's actually a lot better than trying to grab the slider and do a small increment change. So right now it's actually a lot better to use these. This is the new features. There's some other stuff with the Verify, but these are the mostly main stuff. The other stuff is about like textures and everything, so not something really critical. So let's move on to well, I think that's going to be the last subject, which is going to be lathe improvement. So the first thing is we have the option now in lathe, or we already had the option, but we've Mastercam has improved the option to essentially save your operation default and create multiple operation defaults. So anybody familiar with milling are probably going to recognize these two icons on top of every operation. These are now available in lathe, so you can save your option and you can also create custom templates with different options. So the way it works is it works exactly like it did in milling. So you could actually, have some parameters here. I'm going to put some weird values in, something like that. And essentially you create your toolpath, but then you realize, I want to save that to use more often, either as my toolpath default or a custom operation. You can just see it save, and then it brings out the same page as it did in milling. If I select default, it's going to be my toolpath default. So anytime I create a new lathe rough operation, this is what I'm going to be presented with. But I can also save it as a custom here. So let's just call it 2026 and save it like that. So now, let's say I'm doing a roughing toolpath. I could have like different presets that are automatically saved with different values all around. So you see it remembers all my choices and all my different options. So again, nothing new for any mill user, but any lathe user trying to set up operation default, it was actually a lot harder to do than what it is now. And the fact that we can have different templates means we can reduce programming time by a lot in lathe. And I don't know if Trevor, your comment was related to this, but yes, this is a well-needed option to be now available in lathe. So there's that, and also in the drilling toolpath. In the drilling toolpath, now you will notice that when you get to that page here, they've changed the picture. But the nice thing to remember is that it now shows the different tree tracks like it does in milling. Right, you can set your depth and your tip compensation graphically through those little planes here, just like you're able to do in milling drill toolpath. So again, this is a nice little visual cue. Could be helpful sometime to grab depth without having to play with those options too much. So yeah, I'm just looking at anything lathe related before I switch to Mill-Turn, because what I'm going to show is anything lathe, and then anything mill-turn, because obviously mill-turn includes anything lathe as well. Import lathe GTC tool data. Now, a GTC tool data is something that might be available with some manufacturer's website. When you build up your tool, you can actually create what we call a GTC, which is generic tool data, and you can then import that into Mastercam. So if I select here, create tool, but instead of creating tool, I'm actually going to import generic tool catalog. I know Sandvik has those available. I'm not aware of any other tool manufacturer. So if I click open here and I go into this, and here is what generic tool data catalog looks like. Looks like this one, like it's a zip file. So you basically select your catalog here. It will open up all the different tools that you have in there. You can select them all or only a portion of those. You can validate. Now, when you validate, it's going to make sure everything is actually usable. Make sure there's no problems or anything. I should have selected only one because it's going to try to validate all of them. But anyways, we'll leave it there. And once it's actually validated, you could save to part, and essentially you will get all your tool created. Now, I've seen some issues where sometimes the picture is not right, which looks like it is right now. But if I go and edit the tool, you will notice that it actually imported the entire tool and with the proper, insert radius and all that stuff. So definitely helpful. I've seen some issues sometimes where the rad didn't actually match the geometry. So obviously you need to double check all your stuff. And again, I've seen some issues where the picture is not imported properly, but like Christoph can probably confirm, like I showed him yesterday and like it was all right. So definitely a nice little feature right there. If you can get your hand on those GTC.
Yeah, they did show up yesterday.
Yeah. So it's just like I've seen it where it didn't and where it did. So it might still be a couple of bugs to kink out with the update one or something. Now let's talk about Mill-Turn. So in Mill-Turn, there's going to be a new center designer, which is going to be using the same interface as the milling tool designer. So again, no new feature per se on that end, but rather just a different interface to import and work with your tool center. So you can import it from a level or from a step file and so on. So again, just different interface, but like all the features should be the same here. You can click on your feature to highlight the proper item here. One good news about anybody using Mill-Turn is the fact that now all the classic Mastercam mill toolpaths are available in Mill-Turn. So I'm talking about essentially all the swept 2D, 3D ruled, all these are now available in Mill-Turn, and specifically Flowline, Contour, and all of the old surface rough, surface finish toolpaths are also available in Mill-Turn. It will essentially just add a new tab to your toolpath where you could, if you're familiar with Mill-Turn, this is nothing new. So it just add this tab to your workflow, just like you're used to in regular milling or regular lathe toolpath. So definitely a good news for any mill user. You have now access to a lot more toolpaths for you to use. So I did that job setup improvement. So in your job setup, maybe not, let me just use a different file here. So related to plane grouping, essentially, is the fact that within your job setup for Mill-Turn, you have now an option you can activate to make sure all the planes that are created with Mastercam Mill-Turns are created with its own group. So you don't have to create those or manage those automatically. It's under WCS here. You could say group plane by machine group or by spindle origin. So you could actually have a set of planes that are automatically sorted in your plane manager to keep things a bit more organized throughout your file. So this is new right here, and I don't think there's anything. No, yeah. Another thing about Mill-Turn, and this is again super minor, but like the icons here are a bit different. They will actually tell you with what software it will use open up those files. So here it's going to open up with Adobe. So again, not a major thing, but definitely nice to see those icons there. One last thing about Mill-Turn, and I actually realized I forgot to mention it in the French webinar this morning, so too bad for those, I guess. It's the tool projection option. So anybody who's ever tried to work with stick out on a Mill-Turn tool probably realized it was not the easiest thing. Just to give you an example here, let's try to post this code, and then let's launch the simulation. Oh yeah, wow, it's behind one of my screens. I guess it's somewhere. I had trouble last time. Anyways, let's forget about the simulation. I don't want to take too much of your time. But we'll realize that my stick out of my tool is all bad. Now, when you get to your tool prep, tool setup manager here, you can actually select that tool, and you have the set projection length here available to you, and it will actually give you access to a graphical view of your tool and your tool locator, and you have the option to change this. Now, again, this is probably not nothing new, but well, I think this is new, but you were able to do it someplace else. But the nice thing is I can actually change my point to say this is going to be my reference for my stick out, and this is going to be also a reference for my stick out. So now when I go to this option here, my value is not relative to the back of the locator, but it's relative to the tip of the tool to the end of or the start of the locator here, and I can set an exact value for this. So this way I know what information to send out to the operator, and I can actually preemptively validate that my stick out of all my tools are now good. So yeah, that's the new thing about tool projection in Mill-Turn. And I think that does it. I think I've shown everything new for Mastercam 2026. Thank you for being here. What we're going to do is we're going to move on to anybody with the questions.